So fast forward to Batch. So we're 10 years later and in our current influencer strategy. Basically, we're identifying like the top content creators in each city. So Nashville is our top market. So we dug deep in Nashville and we said, who are the most fun people to interact with? So like recently, there's a guy named Gage who is probably 24 years old, and he is very outspoken and very loud.
Great name, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, you should meet this guy. He's just like he's just. I want to learn. I want to put myself out there. I'm here to party. So we sent him on Pontoon Saloon a week ago, and literally I saw the clip come in, and his first sentence is, "Come black out with me on the Pontoon Saloon," and it's just him partying for like an hour and a half. I'm Mike Petrakis. I'm the founder and CEO at Batch, and you're on Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Everyone, welcome to another episode. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
I've never had a real job. I've only been building startup companies since I was a kid.
Wow, one of the lucky ones. That's cool. Say more.
Look, I graduated college, studied entrepreneurship at school, and I was the first hire at a clothing brand. We bought the trademark to a company called Boast from the 70s and relaunched it. And that was my first gig out of college. It was a tennis brand. It was an amazing, iconic, like we had a Japanese maple leaf as the logo that looked like a pot leaf. So it was very ironic. We sold it to country clubs. We sold it to urban streetwear brands. It was this amazing dynamic. So that was my first thing. From there, I started an activewear brand after that called Wolico, based in New York City. It was a men's activewear brand. I got involved in it and turned around a gym. It was actually my local neighborhood gym. And then from there, I said, wow, I've been building these bootstrap companies for the past like 5 or 6 years. I want to toss my hat in the ring to build a venture-backed company. And that's what led me to build Batch.
Okay, let's take it back in the chronology a little bit. So you're from Philly.
Yeah.
Originally born and raised?
Born and raised.
Okay. And you're still there?
Yep. I moved back. I was in New York for pretty much like 8 or 9 years post-college, and then I moved back 2 years ago.
Okay. And what year did you start that tennis brand?
2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the tipping point, the impetus? Like, what was your motivation to say, go, now is go time?
Look, I just wanted to learn as much as possible. I was 22 years old. So I just wanted the experience to build something from the ground up.
Yeah, but how did you even get that opportunity? Did you just,
The real story?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was representing artists in college that were like hip-hop artists in downtown Richmond, and I was making music videos with them, and one of which went viral. And this is like, heyday YouTube 2011, 2012. And Bose caught the attention of this video, like when I submitted my resume to work there. And they're like, we need somebody like you that's willing to just like put out cool stuff and put themselves out there.
Okay, I didn't know you held the camera. Did you shoot and edit and all that?
We brought in other people that were helping, that were students at the time, to do the shooting and yeah.
So you're kind of like the director.
Yeah. And I was also lining up the gigs. So I was hosting the parties, bringing in undergrads to come downtown and go to these events where they were performing.
Producer, director,
yeah,
creative director.
This is hilarious that we're talking about this because this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And my friends would laugh at this, but this is what started it all. Yes.
Well, why would they laugh? I'm just curious because, is it like you're a little bit ashamed of it, like a little bit embarrassed of your past, or is it like something no one would expect from you because you're so...
I went to University of Richmond. It's a fairly conservative, preppy country club kids school.
Okay.
This was like stage one in terms of being irreverent. I was like, I'm going to work with hip hop artists. We're going to go downtown. We're going to do it. I don't care what other people think.
I got you. Other side of the tracks kind of stuff.
Yes.
Okay, now I see.
Yes. That theme has followed me my entire career.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think, as we start to extract lessons here, talking to younger people, I think a lot of people get stuck in being a one-trick pony. They think that's all they can be. And the reality is we're all multifaceted, right? I'm a multi-hyphenate. Mm-hmm. You and I are both dads, mm-hmm. And we do our thing. So it's I got dad time, and I got professional time, and I play tennis. You run. We're both in the weight room. All that kind of stuff. So we're so multifaceted capable of so much more.
Yeah. You're hitting the gym more than I am, though.
Well, I'm getting to that certain age where it's a necessity.
Yeah.
So I think Peter Attia taught me this. He's like, it's sort of like this, depending on where you start, like the height, as you start your decline, you have a further distance to fall. So I'm trying to just get as high as possible until I reach that point where I start descending and I can't go up anymore. So
I love that.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to do: maintain muscle mass, strength, and all that.
Yeah.
Prevent injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with my tennis. Like, you got to have strong knees. You got to have strong ankles, hips. That's where you get your injuries. You fall down and then you're done.
We should play next time I'm out here.
No doubt. On the roof of this building behind us,
No
there's
way.
tennis courts. It's actually the West Hollywood Library, and on the very top, legit courts.
Okay.
Super fun.
There we go.
Yeah. In fact, I have my racket in my bag. I'm ready to go.
If you have two, I would literally go.
I have to.
Okay.
We'll see.
I might need shorts, but
Okay. I might be able to, yeah.
we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so back to your story. So you're 22. You start event producing. You create some content that gets some traction. It gets noticed by the brand. Hey, we need someone like you who's resourceful, knows how to make videos go viral, maybe. And then what happened?
It was actually a dream job. So my first summer, I actually went on I lined up a college party tour. I sold the founders of the company on this idea that like we need to be young and cool and out there with colleges.
Yeah.
And I literally lined up a tour and went through like 25 different universities from Florida to Maine over the course of like 3 months, just like hosting parties, putting together like tennis like tournaments, like whatever I could do to just get the brand out there.
Yeah.
I was sleeping on so many bizarre couches and like just, it was a delirious time in my life where I couldn't like, where just like, I was like, okay, like I slept for 4 hours. I'm on to the next school, but it was an unbelievable experience. And I think well worth it for the brand.
Another important lesson here is you're playing to your strengths. So you're 22, you have
Yeah.
no experience, you
Yeah.
have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
And you're telling them they need to be more youthful, more energy. They need you to do the thing because maybe they had, they were a decade or so beyond that.
And the budget, by the way, was $3,000 for a 20-something campus tour. So
Wow.
I was just like, just let me go.
Bare
I will
bones.
make this happen.
Beyond bare bones. Okay. And you did get traction. So
Yeah.
Where did it take you?
So we were tracking Shopify discount codes at the time. So like we were giving unique college ambassadors a discount code to give out to their friends to buy cool Bose stuff. And that's how we tracked. And at one point it turned into like 20% of our revenue at the time.
Amazing. And what did you learn from working with influencers? I mean, you're now doing much different work, but I would assume there's some key learnings from that.
Yeah. I think you have to build relationships with influencers or content creators or anybody that is a representative of your brand. You can't just like expect them to just champion it by like saying, I tried it, you should buy it.
Right.
That's what I got sick of. That's what I'm sick of seeing right now. Like when CPG brands are just like, I tried it, buy this coconut milk. I think I'm more into, let's find representatives of our brand that fit whatever vibe we want to convey, and let's focus on that first and putting them on our experiences at Batch.
Yeah. How do you vet those people? Or first how do you find them? And then how do you vet them?
We're just digging TikTok and Instagram,
Okay.
like the old-fashioned way.
So you're just shucking a lot of oysters to find the pearls.
To find talent. And by the way, we're not targeting the people that have 1 million followers. We're finding the people who are personality-driven first, that have 5,000 or 10,000 followers, and investing in them.
Nice. I mean, I think I understand why. Like micro-influencers are a big deal. They're a huge value, but why are you doing that? What's the strategy?
So fast forward to Batch. So we're 10 years later in our current influencer strategy. Basically, we're identifying like the top content creators in each city. So Nashville is our top market. So we dug deep in Nashville and we said, who are the most fun people to interact with? So like recently, there's a guy named Gage who is probably 24 years old. and he is very outspoken and very loud. And,
Great name, by the way.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, you should meet this guy. He's just like he's just. I want to learn. I want to put myself out there. I'm here to party. So we sent him on Pontoon Saloon a week ago, and literally I saw the clip come in, and his first sentence is, "Come black out with me on the Pontoon Saloon," and it's just him partying for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those people who don't know what a pontoon saloon is, I mean, we have one in Newport.
Yeah.
It's called, I think, the Tiki,
Tiki Party Boat Cruise,
something like that. Yeah. It floats around
Yeah.
Newport Harbor, and you
Yeah.
can drink on it.
I was just texting the owner of that company.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks fun. I've done like the electric boats that you can go around the harbor.
Yep.
We do that a lot. Like
Duffies.
the little Duffies. Yeah, you'll get like lunch and cruise around Newport. That's like a super cool vibe. And then you'll see the little tiki float or whatever that's called, and they're having fun on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We built the business around party buses and party boats.
Okay, so let's break down and unpack what Batch is, how you came up with the idea. Let's go back a little bit
Sure.
in the storyline.
Sure. So now we're up to 2018, 2019, and I was just eager to build something that could be huge, right? So I thought, like, I was just trying to think big, like TAM opportunity. So I thought of group travel, and I said, nobody is owning the group travel space. A lot of people have tried to do it, and we wanted to go after it like with an entry point via like wedge of the bachelor and bachelorette space, because we felt like these are mandatory parties. If you get invited to a batch party, you're like, all right, I must go. Like, you're not bailing,
Yeah.
right? And it's a big deal. And if you're the maid of honor or, the best man, you want to make sure that it goes off perfectly, right?
Yeah, we were talking off camera. My sister literally, maid of honor. It was a destination kind of getaway, and they were in Hawaii.
Yep.
And yeah, there's no, you have to be there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's all the stress of planning it, and maybe if you've never been there before, figuring out what to do and all that. So,
Right.
Who else was in the space that you saw? Okay, they're doing this, but they're zigging. We want to zag.
I mean, you have Airbnb, you have Viator, Fair Harbor. You have basically there's a couple different.
Vrbo.
Yeah, there's basically in marketplaces you have everybody serving accommodations. So like Vrbo, Airbnb, like HomeAway. And then you have experience businesses that are more like OTAs, like Get Your Guide and Viator. And then you have these like B2B companies that cater towards small businesses like Peak or Fair Harbor. So those were like the major players in the space.
Yeah, and it's fragmented, right? Like, to be honest, I don't really stay at Airbnb anymore. It's just,
Yeah, I don't like the fees.
I don't like the fees. I don't like how picky some of these owners are. Like, you got to do the whole dishes, and then it's like,
Right.
bro, I just paid this huge,
$300 cleaning fee.
right?
Yeah.
And also, it can be sketchy sometimes. You never know. Like, there's this whole
Yeah.
viral trend of like cameras being in all of these Airbnbs,
Yeah.
and you're just like, I mean,
Yeah.
fine if you want to film me with my clothes off, but it's like, it would be nice just to not have to worry about all that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's only a destination. There's no entertainment or anything.
So basically, we looked at where is the biggest opportunity that no like major technology is yet addressing, and we said the experiences, like the party experiences space. Like, I didn't want anything to do with flights or accommodations. I wanted to start with experiences first as a marketplace business, and then I wanted to solve for group travel by creating an app that could plan a party from start to finish. Invite your friends, chat with them, figure out what you want to do, put together an itinerary, and split up expenses. So like combining those two things was like the ultimate vision of like, this is a party planner in your pocket.
Speaking about Airbnb, I'll give them some love. One of the best UX UI experiences
Totally.
on the planet. How did you approach designing the website and making it like a super good experience and easy to use? Because I think that's like a deal breaker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, providing a good experience will make or break you, right? So I think that we started as a planning app in 2020. We launched this app. We got 100,000 users in our first 3 months, right? So we were like, this is amazing. Like,
Okay, wait,
this is serious traction.
Yeah, that's good. But like, how did you do that right in the pandemic when everything was shutting down?
January to March.
Okay.
And I built a wait list leading into it of 50,000 people. And we were letting those people in throughout the fall of 2019 into 2020. And they were inviting their friends to the app. So
Okay,
it just
hold on, wait,
snowballed.
pause. So how did you do that?
So
How did you build this wait list?
So at the time, actually, I will shout out there were a couple friends that were very helpful, one of which was on this podcast, Tyler Dank from Beehive.
Oh, yeah.
He helped build our original wait list, and so did a couple of friends of mine that worked at Facebook. So at the time, CPCs and CPMs were much cheaper than they are now. So we said, if we deploy like a relatively minor advertising budget to build up this base of users, it will be well worth it in about 6 months from now. So while we were building the MVP of the product, we were building up this wait list to let people in, because at the very least we were going to learn a ton, from their first interactions with the app, because we were doing nothing but studying their interactions.
Yeah.
At the time.
So were you collecting emails like a newsletter form, like what Tyler's good at, or were you having them go to like a microsite and like drop the name on the waiting list, or how did that work?
We created a landing page
Yeah.
where we were just like, hey, we have this app coming that is going to solve all of your problems when it comes to like planning a bachelor or bachelorette party.
Yeah.
Sign up here and like, you'll have first early access to this thing. So
Okay.
no major discounts, no major offerings, just like that was clear validation that people wanted to solve this problem.
Yep.
And were willing to try something new.
You were pre-selling. And so how did you drive traffic there?
We were running ads.
Okay.
We were running referral campaigns, and we were building up a social audience. So the other thing that I did was I bought the blog rights to The Batch at the time, BACH, and it was IP that was a bachelorette planning blog that had like an email list of 10,000 people and like decent site traffic. So that
smart.
I recommend getting a base and then building off of that base as opposed to trying to start from zero.
Okay, and taking it back maybe one step further, where'd you get the money to do all this?
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's two things. Like, we put in our own cash, right? And then
How much?
Over the course of Batch's existence, I put in.
Well, let's go that first phase.
At the time, 10 grand. Yeah.
Okay, so you spent 10 grand, and you used that to buy Facebook and Instagram ads.
Yeah.
To drive traffic, and then that yielded you what? How many did you say like pre-sale?
We got to 50,000 on the wait list.
I mean, pretty good return on your investment.
Yeah.
$10,000,
Yeah.
50,000
I think we
names.
spent in total $25,000, and we had rounded up capital. We were literally pitching any angel investor that would give us money at the time. So the moment that we concepted Batch, we started raising money.
So is my math right? Like $2 a head, basically. You spent $2 to acquire a potential customer, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we spent 20. Yes, yeah, that's right.
Right, $25,000,
50,000 people.
50,000 people. Because a lot of people are doing these ROAS, calculations, or the CAC,
like a $2 CPL. That's what it was.
Yeah,
yes,
cost per acquisition.
It was very cheap at the time.
Ridiculous. I mean, money well spent, because you kind of had an idea what the sticker price or the ticket price was for what you were offering, and what was that going to be eventually, you think?
It's a free app to use.
Right. But like, how are you going to capitalize on that $2 a head spend?
Honestly, we didn't have a plan at the time.
Okay.
This is the heyday of startups that were building traction first and then figuring out how to monetize later.
Okay.
So we literally went in to say, let's get traction and figure out how to monetize this thing. And 2020, COVID did us a favor, because we took a hard look at ourselves and we said, great, that's cool. You have 100,000 people for a travel tech app. How are you going to monetize this thing? Right? And that's when I was looking at flights versus hotels and accommodations versus experiences, right? I knew there were multiple options that we'd have.
Okay.
But I kind of like just built the wait list to buy ourselves time.
Yeah.
And sold the dream of, well, I bet we can get 100,000 users on this app, and we did.
Gutsy.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? I mean, it seems like, you could have put that $25K into the stock market and got an 8 or 10% yield. You could have, Mike, it's kind of gutsy. Like, like no plan.
One of the most interesting points I learned in venture was like growth wins all conversations. At the time, user growth was good enough to justify on a pre-seed investment.
Okay.
Like, this is traction. This is interesting.
Proof of concept.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, there's no product market fit to justify at the time.
Right.
But I think like now it's revenue wins all conversations. But back then, I think there was an argument to make about serious growth if you could demonstrate it.
So you had this idea that you were going to parlay this and try and get venture help.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
the plan from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were just solely focused on like proof of concept and optics, social proof. Hey, we got 100,000 users signed up, and then you'll figure out what to do.
Yes.
And is that what happened?
And I had some partners at the time that were essentially just cowboys of like my former partner helped build Blade. So he had like good experience with mobile apps and like especially when it came to like building the original marketplace. So we were all feeling gutsy about building this thing.
And then after the pandemic, how are you feeling?
So we spent a year in the darkness trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to monetize this thing? Like we know that there's traction, right? And we parsed the data and we saw in the itinerary events when people would add itineraries, like, you know, going to Denver and doing like a party bus and a brewery and a dinner, we were like, oh my God, like people are telling us what we should be monetizing here, right? Mm-hmm. So we started calling up all of the vendors on the itinerary events list, and believe it or not, 100,000 users gave us like more than 50,000 itinerary events to pull from. So we were actually pretty busy during COVID because we were just calling up different vendors for a year, right?
Okay.
And that's really how we got started with the marketplace.
And were you charging the vendor? So were the users citing out specific names of vendors, and then you would just dial for dollars and say,
yes.
hey,
yes.
my folks are already signed up.
Yes.
They're coming your way.
We still do that.
So break that down, because that's genius. I was wondering, okay, there's a year between this time that you've got some traction and you're maybe earning money, but I'm thinking, how are you keeping the lights on? How are you buying Cheerios? Like, you know, how are you making this work?
Yeah.
It sounds like that was an answer.
Yes. Like we were literally, users would record full itinerary events with all the details about where they were going.
Yep.
And we would say, oh my, like a funny example is White Limousine is a bar, rooftop bar in the Graduate Hotel in Nashville that at the time had over 1,000 parties a month logging this itinerary event. We still cannot get them onto our app. They're like, we have demand. We don't need this.
Right. We don't need you.
Yeah. But like all the small businesses across the country would find value, of course, with this because it beats them otherwise paying, you know, Google or you know, like Viator or Get Your Guide, which are like charging a higher take rate than we do. So that small businesses was our answer into building up this marketplace.
Mm-hmm. And how profitable was it? Like, how did you charge them? What was the model?
Yeah, 20% from the vendor for every transaction that came through our app. So nothing to the user. We were only making money when the vendors made money. And that's how we launched.
And how were you tracking it?
So we had to build all kinds of technology to address this.
Yeah.
It's funny because we actually launched with Shopify in the OG, like back in the day.
Okay.
But while we were selling up new businesses in 2020, we were also building an admin platform where basically we could onboard vendors into that would record, that was actually connected with Stripe to like facilitate and record payments. So if we got a booking, then we would do it the old-fashioned way back then, where like somebody booked a party bus, we would get $700, and then we'd say, "Hey, party bus, can you confirm this booking for us?" Okay, great. Pass them 80%, we keep 20%. That's how it worked, and it was a mess.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah,
I mean,
for a year.
Yeah. So, how did you figure it out? Because I'm just thinking now. I mean, it's something we still wrestle with right now, which is like on this podcast, we'll say, you know, this episode brought to you by Marriott Bonvoy, our friends at, and then we have a special code that's trackable. But then, you know, the reach and the frequency that people are hearing, like they may hear it here and forget. There's just human error to put in the right code, or they might be like, "Oh, I forgot," and then like they come back at a different angle, and like, so it's really hard to track all that stuff sometimes, right? So, how did you figure that out?
So that's where we're going to fast forward a little bit more because that's where venture capital enters the equation. So the number one reason to secure venture capital for this business is to build integrations to facilitate date time availability for all these businesses and
Okay.
then facilitate their payouts.
Okay.
That is the reason. And that started in 2021 in a more sophisticated way. And now our platform is like 80% integrated.
Okay.
But this took years to
Yeah.
get right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And how much money did you invest to get it right? What are we talking about?
We have raised our seed and our Series A. This is over the course of 3 years. I'd say 40% of the deployed capital has gone into building integrations of sorts or bettering our back-end product in some manner.
And can you walk us through kind of what the rounds were like? Are we talking about 5 figures, 6 figures, 7, 8, 9?
Yeah. So 2021 happened. People get vaccinated, right? So we had 3 marketplace cities. We had Nashville, Miami, and I think Austin at the time. And we were demonstrating a decent amount of growth. And we had saw high conversion, meaning when parties go to those cities, they ended up booking with us a good amount. Like Nashville saw a 10% booking conversion rate off the jump for all parties that were going to that city. Now Nashville's up to 24%. It's incredible. Nashville is what we built this business on the back of. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had 3 cities, demonstrated a lot of traction and early revenue, enough to prove product market fit in these cities. And then Corazon Capital came in the fall of September. In the fall, actually, the day before I got married, signed the term sheet with Corazon Capital in 2021. Yeah.
Okay, and then
That was the venture train.
yeah, and give us an idea of context. What kind of size was that? Out of the gate?
It was a 3.5 week. Well, we had been raising money leading into that. So, but all in all, it was almost like a $4 million round. Plus money that we raised prior to that. But
I mean, reasonable.
yeah,
Doable.
yeah. Not to mention we had scratched together a lot of money prior to that. So by the time we announced this over the course of 3 years, we had raised $8 million basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So roughly two million plus is going into your web dev.
Yep. Yep.
Still conservative. I mean, who knows what Airbnb has spent on that development? I mean, it's or another one. I love the Warby Parker experience, UX UI. It's a kind of a classic case study of how easy it is to navigate. And do you have any favorite sites that you like that are easy to get around?
I mean, Airbnb is world class.
Yeah.
They have built a world class platform. I've been calling Uber several times throughout the past 24 hours, and I think it's pretty cool what they have done, especially inserting all their ancillary revenue schemes on the app. Yeah. I honestly, another big inspo for me early on was Hotel Tonight.
Yeah. Which is an
Easy to
Airbnb
use.
product.
It's very straightforward. Now it is.
Yeah.
But it was very easy to use, and that was something that really stuck with me since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the term it just works is
Totally.
kind of important.
Totally. And they were, by the way, scraping to they were, cold calling supplies, signing up hotels all day. That's how that business grew. And we were fortunate enough to speak with them when we were fairly early on at Batch. And one thing that stuck with me is we were incredibly data driven. And by the time we got to our Series A was where they were looking at their insights on their Series C or D. So it meant a lot to me to hear that from the guys at Hotel Tonight when we were building Batch early on. Because they built a phenomenal business.
Yeah. I'm just curious, do you have other peers in your industry who you trade notes with? Do you have this little peer group or this therapy group where you can go here's what's working for us and not working, how'd you guys solve it?
So I've joined CEO groups over the years. One of the things that was really important when we were raising the early angel money was to join any sort of accelerator incubator. I always say that for founders. I was a part of StartX, which is non-dilutive, and it's Stanford's accelerator program. Even though I did not go to Stanford, I still got in.
Where'd you go to school?
Richmond in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said
So
that.
they,
yeah.
you know,
Was that undergrad, or you went to graduate school there?
No, I just did undergrad at Richmond.
Okay.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, no, same here.
Yeah, which I think is an important thing when I'm talking about, like, building your own thing. Like, I'm a normal guy. I just work hard. I'm willing to just slog it out. And I think, so anyway, I think, and I think as evidenced by when we were building Batch, throughout this 2020 to now, I had 2 co-founders that didn't make it to our seed round. My COO had cancer, who is my business partner and has largely built the business to what it is. For 2 years, she was battling cancer, and then we had a year and a half of COVID. And I think that one thing that we really appreciate is when we raised these early venture rounds, besides the market opportunity, besides the traction, I think one thing that they paid attention to was calling me a cockroach, because they're like, the market tried to kill you, and you're still out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatable. That feeling like maybe you're not as smart as everyone else, but you have more tenacity, or you have more will to survive.
I'm just going to grind it out.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Big time. I feel that. Just
going to grind it out.
Yeah. I don't know if you can feel that too, but it's like, I think if you're doing this comparison game, which is not a good game to play, but honestly, if you break it down, there's not a lot of people who are more hardworking than you are if you really put your mind to it. You just...
You can always have that advantage.
Yeah.
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 And I think that, we look at all the things in the news on TechCrunch and like all the AI movements of like people that are raising billions of dollars and they did it in like 2 or 3 years. Like, it might be true. I don't, but the large majority of us are just going to slog it out to build businesses, and whether it's venture backed or not. And I think like Batch has had phenomenal traction. We're building a business that I love and I would honestly do for a long time. But it's just a grind, and you got to be willing to put up the fight and have endurance to get it done. And I think that being a runner and running track and cross country in college was a major part of, getting that mindset in place.
Yeah, say more about that. I think it seems like when you're a runner, the people who know where to put the tired, because we all just get tired.
Yeah.
There's not like unlimited energy or motivate. I was like, if you learn where to put it, then you just can outrun anyone else. What are your thoughts on that?
I think track is a fun reference for startups, because when that bell rings, it's time to go. Like the final lap, when you're like, there's a couple people right in front of you, you're going stride for stride with them, and you're like, I'm going to grind this out. Like, I got 60 seconds left. I'm going all in. Yeah,
and it's practice time's over.
Yeah.
Now you're just showcasing how much preparation you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. This thing, building a business is a multi-year journey. Like, back to the point of the things you read about versus reality, like, you're signing up for an 8 to 10 year situation when you choose to build a business like this.
Yeah. What's the hardest part of it right now? So, I mean, you talked about Nashville. What are some of these other cities that are popping off?
Standout cities this year. So, like, I mentioned the top markets: Nashville, Scottsdale, Miami, Vegas, Austin. Standouts are like Savannah, Palm Springs, San Diego, Destin, a lot of like tertiary Florida markets, meaning like, I think what's going on here is people are like, yeah, I could go to Miami, but I could also go to one of these beach destinations with my friends, spend way less money. Like, they will do these trips under $1,000.
Outer Banks. You go to Outer Banks.
Outer Banks is cool, but it's not on our marketplace yet.
Okay.
But like, Tampa is a great example. You can have a beautiful, or Fort Lauderdale, you can have an amazing weekend. It's easy to get to. And you can get on a boat. You can go out, have a private chef come to your house. You can have cocktail cowboys or cabana boys come to your house and serve you drinks.
Sure.
You can have a full weekend, the same stuff you could do in Miami for half the price.
Yeah. So what's hard about the business right now?
I think it's just, from my perspective, it would be, it's a good question, because I think right now you have a weird financial market, which is trickling down to how consumers make decisions, which is fairly interesting because despite not being able to buy a house or car, people are still traveling. Like TSA levels are up, business is up. Like it's a very interesting dynamic. In addition, suppliers are going to feel the pressure, right? So we are just trying to like make sure that we can do our job to drive growth to these businesses. Because again, in venture, you need to grow at all costs or you will die because you are dependent on their money until you're not. And I think for us, we're like not too far away from, being in a really good spot cash flow wise. But I think the point is, we need to continue to add value to our vendors in order to make that happen. So the thing that keeps me up at night, to answer your question, is just how do I continue to make sure that I am following up on my promise and my word to deliver value to the small businesses that we cater to on our app.
Mm-hmm. And what is that word?
I mean, number one is revenue growth. Like, I want these guys to be up year over year. Like, traditional small businesses are used to being flat or whatever, like years in a row. I want them to win. Yeah. I want them to get as many customers as possible.
Yeah. And so how are you ensuring that happens? Like, I mean, you could just
You did it with your hands. It's connectivity between supply and demand.
Okay.
Right? So for us, we started as a Bachelorette app. In October, we rebranded to All Parties. We are now great. We're like 50% birthday parties out of nowhere.
So October to now, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about 9 months-ish. Yep. Okay.
We were 97% Bachelorette parties a year ago.
Yeah.
We are now less than 50% Bachelorette parties.
All right. So you're diversifying.
Yes.
So that you can.
It's a beautiful thing.
You can grow.
Yes.
Yep.
So, and we rebranded by adding a T in the middle, batch all your party plans in one place versus BACH. And we, reskin the app and can talk about the brand all day. But I think the point is, in acquiring all these new party types, it leads to new demand for all these businesses that we have on our platform, right? So what was really interesting to see was that Nashville has the same level of conversion for divorce parties as it does for Bachelorette parties. And we're like, this is great news for Batch because...
Hilarious.
Yeah, but like all of our businesses, people just want to party and have a good time, no matter what kind of trip you're on.
Yeah.
So party buses are going to work for you.
Yeah. Let's dig into the branding a little bit. Bachelorette parties, I get that. Batch, adding a T. So let's go back to, for people who are thinking about, naming convention or coming up with a brand, zooming out, like how do you see brand? What's the difference between like a product and a brand?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a real example. My former company, Wolico, was compression shorts with pockets in them. That's what we launched a Kickstarter campaign on. That is a product. To build it into a brand required weekly meetups in New York City, running at the pier, like doing workouts at the pier, right? Filming everything that we were doing and bringing in influencers and doing track workouts and all that stuff. Eventually, our goal, we didn't quite get there, was to like have a spin studio in New York or like a health food spot in New York. Like that's, to me, that's like what building a brand is like in a direct to consumer sense. At Batch, what I really cared about was just bringing the brand to life through our UGC and like our actual parties that go on our trips. They will bring the brand to life for us, right? I can come up with a brand identity package. I can say I want to be bold and irreverent and like on the cutting edge, but and I do think we've like built a brand that has an amazing color scheme and cool identity. But the point is, the success of Batch, as I said, is driven off consumer like supply and demand. And I think that demand, or the users that go on our trips, are incredibly fun to interact with, where like every weekend in Nashville, there's 3,000 parties that go on a trip using the Batch app. And we have just cracked the code in the past like 2 months of getting parties to send in content after their trip. Like this took a bizarrely long time.
Yeah. So what was that code?
So just offering to cover their experience in retrospect. So being like, hey, like it's Friday afternoon. Have an amazing, like we text every single party that's going on a trip.
Okay.
And we say, it's Friday afternoon. I hope you have an amazing weekend on Batch. we'd love to hear how it goes. And if you send in content, you'll have a chance of us like refunding your experience.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, why wouldn't I do that?
Like a lottery draw?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing that every single week. There's thousands of parties that are going on, and we have scaled this program from 5 pieces of content to like 300, a weekend.
Smart.
Yeah.
So my brain thinks, how does that lottery system work? Is it like some, marketing manager behind the scenes just spinning a wheel and then it lands on red number 10 and then they get picked? Or is it more algorithmic computer?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's just random?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drawing a name out of a hat?
Yeah. Basically, it's like...
But you're still rewarding them. I mean, someone gets the win.
It's like if somebody put real effort into getting high-quality content for us, I think they should be refunded for their experience, because that's the same as us paying a content creator, because we can use that for our lifecycle content, our product listing pages, our social media pages, our paid ad performance campaigns. That is our brand. That content drives us forward.
Yeah. Are you doing any other kind of organic content, or just UGC right now?
Yeah. The 2 things that I care about when it comes to like organic acquisition are content creators that we find that fit our brand personalities in all of our top cities, and then getting content every single week from our parties directly. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really paying attention to anything else, because I believe this is like where I am like putting my foot down. We are sometimes looked at as an OTA, which means like online travel agent, similar to Get Your Guide or Viator. Mm-hmm. Those guys compete to be number 1 on Google and win the SEO game and write blog posts with keywords and stuff like that. I don't care about that. Right. I think the future of how people search for content is going to be on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, the future is now.
Right.
I mean, it's already happening.
Right. So I am doubling down on those channels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's smart. I mean, TikTok it's the new search engine.
Yeah.
It's the new short form YouTube. I think that's why YouTube created YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
Because TikTok's been eating their lunch. Still is.
Yes.
It's a different ecosystem. There's pluses and minuses. I find this game extremely interesting. This is where we play too, either with our clients who are creating content for, or just our own internal growth. We're looking at this really hard. Interesting. Okay. So you look at brand as the experience. You're counting on your customers to show you what they think Batch is all about. How did you like the rebrand? Was there much thought put into that? Because that's a big deal, like what you're named. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a lot of redesigns. You mentioned Uber. Mm-hmm. I think one of the worst logo redesigns.
That's a huge deal. Yeah.
Spending millions, and I think it's a debacle.
Yeah. I could have hired Red Antler or somebody to like build this, but I literally hired my surf buddy, and we did this together. And I spent every weekend whiteboarding what I felt like makes sense for this brand. I even like put a grid together of like potential names and like pros and cons of each thing. And
what were some of the alternatives?
Fest, which was one that I really liked, but like sounded like Infest. So
or like Fester. It's not a great connotation.
Yeah.
Cross off.
Yeah. Selly, like, which was celebrate, but nothing really stuck except for, hey, one big core thing was like last year 1 in 5 bachelorette parties in the U.S. used our app. That's like, that was awesome to see that traction.
So it's 20% basically.
Yeah. One of our investors said, do not kill the company by expanding too fast, right? Like focus on, make sure that you still have the bachelorette audience first.
Yeah, there's
before
equity.
You do anything else.
There's equity in what you built so far.
Exactly.
Don't go off the radar all of a sudden and alienate 20%.
That called for adding a T in the name.
Okay.
Simple rebrand, easy switch. People are not going to pick up their phone and be like, what the hell is this app that I just downloaded?
Right.
They're going to say, oh, this used to be a pink app, and now it's black and white with a bunch of fun colors in it.
They probably didn't even notice the spelling change.
Yeah.
Likely, right?
I think it's funny because some people are still like, we were joking about negative commentary prior to this. we actually put on Instagram, somebody left an app review being like, I love this app, but I liked it more when it was pink.
Okay.
It's like, well, it's not pink anymore. I'm sorry. It
yeah.
stepped into this generation, which I don't think was abandoning the Bachelorette audience. I think it's more like doubling down on being fun and bold and like loud and like party-esque, more than just like traditional in pink. And that's why I feel like it still made sense for the Bachelorette audience.
Yeah, that makes sense to me now that you explain it that way, because you've built up all this equity in the space. You have these loyal customers already doing the Bachelor, Bachelorette thing. Mm-hmm. You can't abandon that. I mean, that's
totally.
20% of your business at least.
No, it was 97% of our audience last year was Bachelorette parties.
Yeah.
Right?
So even if you want to name it party something or something that sounded like a party, you can't because you already put a stake in the ground for all this. So yeah, you needed to do some sort of subtle adaptation. That was really your only play.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. But that was the make or break into how this business could be something really great one day. Was there was a thing that when all of our investors signed on to Batch, they said, this is the Bachelorette business is a great one to build, but is it going to be a multi-billion-dollar company? And the big question with Batch is, can we successfully do this transition without killing our current customer base and transitioning successfully into new party types?
Related story to what you just talked about is this case study that just popped in my mind. So when I was working my way through college, I've talked about this on the pod a lot of times. I worked at Ralph Lauren, got to meet Ralph. I actually thought I was going to go into the apparel business. Loved fashion, loved apparel, loved Ralph's whole story. Do you know his story at all? Or
no.
So Ralph's real name is Ralph Lipschitz. So there's a brand change there to Ralph Lauren. He wanted to sound, I think, more mainstream or at least more American. So Ralph changed his name, and at first in the 70s, everyone was doing very thin ties. You ever watch that show like Twilight Zone? So black and white.
Yeah.
The host Rod Serling would come and he'd have this tiny little tie that just looked like a little rope. So Ralph was like, all right, everyone's going skinny ties. I'm going fat ties, big wide ties. So Ralph was famous for making the first like giant wide 70s ties. And like they took off because, right, it was just like pattern interrupt, wanted to zig when everyone else was zagging. And that sort of got him a start. And then, Ralph was a fan of nostalgia, and he loved like The Great Gatsby, and he loved European fashion, especially British. And so that's kind of, started with the whole polo. And anyway, it took off. So during the time that I was at retail, I got to meet a lot of cool people. One of them was Sean Stussy, who'd come into the store all the time. Even though I didn't know him as Sean Stussy, he was just Sean who would buy a lot of product. And another one was this guy named Massimo. Cool. Yeah, you remember Massimo?
Yes.
So Massimo,
his COO, what I actually have met at that company, and he's a great surfer from Huntington Beach.
Yeah, so Massimo was big in the 80s, and his big claim to fame was the volleyball short with his name scribbled on the back of it. It was like this signature short, right? And he, like, all the activewear blew up. It was doing really, really well, and he was just doing tremendous business with like shorts, T-shirts, hoodies, whatever. It was like all kind of casual wear. And then Moss started calling himself Moss, and he became like this designer. And I remember he did this deal with Target, and he was like, he started to try and go down the Ralph Lauren pathway of like creating suits and like really formal wear. And I thought, oh, how's this going to go? And so it's kind of like relatable to what you're talking about right now, which is, can you go from diversifying from, where you're at, like with maybe bachelor and bachelorette parties into these other areas? What you've done in like the party zone, it's an easy path. It's an easy transition. What Moss tried to do was like go upstream when he was already down.
Right.
I think Ralph had success because he was already upstream with like ties, neckwear, formal wear, suits, and then he went downstream with like puffy jackets in the 90s, and he had his whole like. So I'm trying to extract a lesson here for like people who are trying to diversify for the right reasons. It sounds like you wanted to have more than just like one SKU. You needed to really diversify the portfolio. Otherwise, you would just be a one-trick pony.
Yes.
And that's how you build this brand.
Yes.
Right? You become distinct for something. And you make it so that it's scalable, so that you've actually got a business that people want to invest in, or maybe you have an exit one day. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Exit versus scale?
I mean, are you building to exit, or are you building?
What's this all about?
Yeah, like what's the end game?
Yeah. I'll be careful. I typically would be careful with what I would say, but I think the number one thing that Sarah, my partner, and I talk about is as long as we are having a good time, let's build. And I think that if this becomes, I think we have a very clear path to the next fundraise. I think that from there, we're talking, I have confidence we have a path to that, like hundreds of millions in terms of market value. And I think that we will have a very real conversation at that time of like, are we having a good time? Or should we double down? And I think that one thing that has been very interesting to me is, are we having fun? That's like number one. And number two is project fulfillment. Rebrand was a very exciting project for me in terms of like, I had this dream, and that was part of fulfilling it in terms of like catering, building something that was beyond just bachelorette parties into all parties.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I feel like we are doing that, which is amazing. And now I'm kind of like, can we go global with this thing? And can we be at 100 cities, and can we have 10,000 experiences and 10 million people, versus 3 million and 3,000 experiences. And so I think that we have a lot of open ground to run in right now with the expansion on the consumer side. And I think there's a lot of businesses that are paying attention and applying into work with Batch because they're like, cool, like I want to be in front of birthday parties that are going to my city. I want the divorce parties. They're going to spend even more with us potentially. So I think,
well, and these are the companies, these are the people that it's like that 80-20 rule, but it's probably more like 99-1 in this case. Like 1% of the companies in the United States are probably responsible for like 99% of the revenue.
Yeah.
But the rest of these small businesses out there, the people that are supporting your parties, the restaurants, the small business owners, the companies that rent out the boats or whatever.
Yeah.
Like these 99%, they're holding the economy up. With their bare hands.
Yeah.
This is like what makes this country amazing.
Small businesses make the world go round.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So in a way, you're bringing that together, and I think it's a good
and
cause.
I love that. As a business to build, I am passionate. I love partying. It's fun. I went to Nashville with my friends 2 weeks ago. We had a blast. We did all of our experiences.
Yeah.
But like nothing makes me more excited than seeing Grant from Honky Tonk Express. He used to have 4 buses. He was out with us till 3 a.m. 2 weeks ago in Nashville.
Sure.
He has 20 buses now.
Amazing.
He has 20 buses. And I think that nothing makes me more excited than seeing these businesses grow.
So we talked about brand. We talked about your logo, your redesign. So your logo is not your brand, and your product is not your brand. It's not the product features. It's not your marketing. It's not the UGC. So how would you describe the Batch brand now?
I would say it's an interesting question. I'd say people first, and it's just a brand that you interact with to have fun with your friends. That's all. We just want to make it really easy to make it so that you can go on a trip with your friends and have a great time and not worry about a damn thing.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. So I like that. Just for the sake of like conversation, I'm going to push back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm your competitor.
Yeah.
And I hear that, and I have the same philosophy. How do you compete with that? Because one of the great sort of case studies or one of the great lessons that came out of doing this pod for me is when I talked to Seth Godin about this, and he said, Brian, imagine if Nike made a hotel close your eyes, and is the Nike brand distinct enough that you can imagine what that hotel looks like? A brand is a shorthand for what you stand for, right? It's a look, it's a feel, it's a vibe, it's a smell even. And if you close your eyes, can you imagine the Nike hotel? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He said, now close your eyes, and can you imagine the Hilton sneaker, your running shoe?
Yeah.
And you're like, more difficult. He says Hilton doesn't have a brand. I would argue with that. Hilton does have a brand.
Yeah.
The Hilton brand is, I need to be affordable on almost every street corner. I need to be sort of, like nondescript.
Yeah.
So it's like you roll into a city and you're like, oh, great. There's a safe place that has basically a clean bed for $100. That's where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And, they're there for you. The problem with being a commodity like that is you get into this race to the bottom where you're competing on features and benefits. You're not distinct. And that's what separates the brand, is because you're willing to pay a premium for it. You're like, you see the W Hotel and you're like, I think, there's a better party going on over there. The music is a little cooler. Like, I'm the kind of guy that would stay at a W Hotel instead of a Hilton. Like, that's how I can project my brand.
Yep.
And so I'm going to go there. I'm willing to pay, $150, $175.
Yeah.
So then how do you differentiate, right? If someone else is just going to step up and say, I just want to party too.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, if I'm thinking about this correctly, I'm like, how do I identify the Batch brand in a way that is defensible? And honestly, I would argue that it's content first, meaning sending people on our experiences is how I define our brand. If they are having a good time and going to our cities, it might smell like vomit sometimes. It might be, you might drink a little too much. You might even have a cigarette, and I think that no one will beat me, Mike Petrakis, on being transparent, a little vulgar, and a little bit irreverent,
Yep.
And I think that when people think about Batch, especially where we're going with, this party time brand and these extensions that I'm trying to build, I think that people are going to recognize that this is a fun, irreverent, out there brand. And I would argue that not a lot of people are willing to put themselves out there in a silly, ridiculous way than I am.
Okay, so it sounds like this is a little bit like how Las Vegas is trying to brand themselves, right? Like, everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
Come be yourself.
Yeah.
Come and not be yourself. Like, go nuts.
Yeah.
Is
exactly.
that what?
Be you.
Yeah.
Like when we were in Nashville, we were literally just like imagining that we were basically on a costume party all weekend. I wore a cowboy hat. I had a Marlboro Red in my mouth. Like, I don't smoke cigarettes. Like, I work out 5 times a week, but like, I did that weekend and we had a blast. Like, I just let go of all my stresses and wasn't worried about a damn thing, but having a good time with the people that I love.
Yeah.
That's like what we want to convey to our people.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anyone else trying to do that in your space?
So there's a cool kids business called Partyful that has built an amazing and viral party planning product. So like the new age Facebook event where you're like, instead of inviting people to Facebook event, invite them to Partyful. They're too cool for us.
Yeah.
I'm cool with being, silly and like my true self in Nashville or one of our party cities more than like I need to be at the trendiest spot in New York.
Yeah. So it's kind of come full circle. You're sort of back on the other side of the tracks, like where you started with the, hip hop, off the beaten path tennis brand with the Japanese, you sort of always stayed in that lane.
I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah. It feels true to myself.
Not the highbrow, other side of the tracks, country club mentality. Yeah. So you're like,
I think my family would say the same thing, and so would my in-laws.
Yeah. So the Batch brand is like for the streets. Like, just say what it is. Like, where people can come and just be themselves, or let it all hang out.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
And has this ever crossed your mind that someone like a Brian Chesky or like someone at Airbnb is paying attention and they made this acquisition to the hotel app we just mentioned, that they could make an acquisition of Batch. I mean, that would seem like a natural transition to sort of want to acquire a company like that and fold it into their services. Then they truly became full service.
Yeah, it could be if they let us be ourselves. So, I think it's like, does this fit? And they are very refined. Their Experiences rebrand was, like top of the line, pay 10 grand and like have this ridiculous once in a lifetime experience. And I'm just kind of like arguing that like, you can book Hibachi Chef on your birthday for Saturday night for $50 a head,
Yeah.
Like, I think that we're catering towards people that are normal and just want to have a good time.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe it's off brand for Airbnb.
It could be, but I think if they want it, I'm happy to talk. But I think the point is, we're going to do us for as long as we can.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be worth it for them to have, like the country club mentality and the fun uncle.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
To have options there.
Exactly.
Like if you want to, have that spring break in Fort Lauderdale. And
yeah. The other comment I'll make about that is like, think about group psychology dynamics. When I think what made Batch as a planning product special is that we are alleviating the pain points to coordinate. Like, all right, the first text, like, who's going? RSVP. What are we doing? Where are we going? Did you book your flight? Like, the more lighthearted you can keep all of this, the better. Like, so I think we went deep on group psychology dynamics when we were thinking about our brand and our product to say, like, we're going to keep it light. We're going to be a little bit silly.
Yeah.
We're going to have fun with this thing. Like, invite your friends. Let's get this damn thing going.
Yeah, and that's brand too, right? So
Exactly.
The way you speak, the words that you use, the tonality, I think.
Exactly.
Are all these things that you kind of take it for granted when you start something, but you have to be so intentional with how you're branding it to make sure that you're on brand. Like, you wouldn't want to use super flowery formal language if you're not walking that talk.
Yeah.
That's where it starts getting off the tracks.
Yes.
Yeah, branding is so important.
And I think that caters back to like the team that we are building too. Like, transparency has been our thing since day one. And we've had amazing retention with, our team at Batch, that of people that are just like willing to grind it out because we're just like having a good time, being very transparent with each other, and building a fun business that we really care about. And I think that brand identity and like transparent, fun, keep it light, like, is catered into the internal team as well.
Yeah. So I know that you're this, serial entrepreneur. You built a lot of businesses. You got a lot of ideas. If you had time, and I know you don't have time, but like if you had time to dream up like a side hustle or like a new product or business, what are you thinking about?
Ski mountains.
What?
No. Ski mountains. So I think,
say more.
So hear me out. So one of the fun projects I did when I was younger was like help grow this local gym in Brooklyn. And I was like, wow, this is a straightforward business to build. It's like very simple. Like, if you look at a P&L on that versus Batch. And I think that
fill it up with members.
Yeah.
Sell memberships.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah. And now you have like cold tub, hot tub. Like, I care about building communities based on people's lifestyle interests. So I'm doing that in a pretty cool way with Batch. But I think if I were to think about like, one day my wife and I will move to the suburbs of Pennsylvania and we will say, we want a cool place to hang out. And I don't like country clubs,
Right.
So like,
yeah, not my style. Yeah.
Right. If we had a cool gym that had like a lifestyle club, but like more approachable than a Soho house, that would be cool. Like, I would build stuff like that. And then like, when I think about a ski mountain, that's a little different. Like, in Pennsylvania, they get maybe 8 inches of snow a year.
Okay.
And like, they are trying so hard to make it work in the winter. And I'm like, stop it. Like, let's just think about the other 9 months of the year.
Okay.
And what can you do to make like a cool lifestyle resort, that has people that like would be passionate and build a community within, Spring Mountain that's a 30-minute drive from like everybody in Philadelphia.
See, there you go again, leaning back into your strengths. I love it. Another, you're consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would that look like? So you're saying 9 months out of the year, it's sunny.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Sundance? That's in like Utah area.
I've been to Park City.
Okay, so it's Sundance. It's usually known for the film festival. It's snowy. Sometimes it's up to the roof, and it's gorgeous. But in the summertime, I've been to Sundance, and they turn the whole mountain into a mountain bike resort where you can
Exactly.
like rent bikes.
Exactly.
You bomb the hill with like bikes with 6 inches of travel, and you just fly.
Yes.
And you go up the lifts in your bicycle, your
Yeah.
mountain bike. It's the most fun you'll ever have.
Yeah.
And so, there's a very seasonal business. So is that what you're talking about? Like,
Yeah. Like adding more fun activities. Like so this weekend I'm going on a family vacation to Nemacolin Woodlands. I guess it's called Nemacolin now. They went through a massive rebrand. They brought like Neil Patrick Harris and a bunch of stars there. And like it's like a cool resort that they have flipped over the past like 10 years and brought into the next generation.
okay.
All seasons resort, tons of stuff to do. If we like it this weekend, I could see us going back every year, right? And I think that these mountains, especially the family owned, have been around for 50 plus years. There's one called Magic in Vermont that I'm thinking about. We're open towards like bringing into the new generation of like branding, lifestyle interests that are like, could be ice skating, it could be mountain biking, it could be hiking. Then I think they could build something really special.
Yeah. Sort of to add on to that idea is like great food.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of these resorts,
Chicken fingers.
it's trash, right?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you have like
Exactly.
a couple of like legit places to eat,
Yeah.
like for foodies that people
Yeah.
could really enjoy? And, it makes me think. I've been thinking about this idea. We were talking off camera about kids, car seats.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the middle of summer right now.
Mm-hmm.
How about this car seat for kids, like with air-cooled seats or heat-cooled seats? Why can't you do that?
I dig it.
I have this bed called 8 Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Mateo and his crew, helping me sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
I love this bed because it's thermoregulated. I can control it with an app.
So nice.
It's got to be plugged in.
Yep.
And it works with, you fill this little tank full of water and it
Yep.
sends the water hot or cold through the tubes of the mattress or the cover. Why can't you do this with a car seat? This would be amazing.
Yeah, I know. And it could, reduce risk. You should never leave your child in the car. But like, even when our car is hot and we put our son in, it's still too hot. And I'd prefer him not to like, feel the heat when he first gets in.
Right.
So,
What should we call this?
and you're already paying so much money for these car seats. It's like, how much more could that be?
Yeah, I think it's a big idea. I don't know why anyone hasn't done it. I mean, you could just, like some of these cameras that are here, they have what are called a V-mount battery. And the V-mount, compared to like a small little camera battery you put in a Canon or a Sony, the V-mounts, they're good for 3 or 4 hours at a time, and they charge up really quickly, and they're like little bricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could probably V-mount that thing onto a car seat and then have it power up the whole unit. I mean, what would we call this, a new invention? This whole idea of, you think about, does the product come first, chicken or the egg, right? Does the product come first, or does the pain point or the problem you're trying to solve come first? I think it's always the pain point. So it's like you see something that's broken, or you could do better, or you see it doesn't exist. You got to make sure that you have, a TAM, a fan base for that, people who want it. And I think, seems like people are always having new kids all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's a viable market for it.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how to do it.
I was thinking about so my son is crawling a bunch but not walking yet, and I was thinking about
How old?
He's 1 year and 2 months.
Okay, yeah.
And he's very close to walking, but he's on the move, and I'm like, we are exhausted on a Saturday by 5 p.m. right? And so are the grandmas probably. So I was just trying to think like just an office chair that could be repurposed for like something that could swivel around to follow the kid around, so that you don't have to just stand and bend over to cater towards the kid.
Is he not in like one of those walkers yet? Like,
No.
have you tried that?
He ignores it every time. Sits and crawls. He's like, I got to be on the move. I don't care for this walker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, one of our kids was like that. He was like, actually kind of even up off of his knees on his elbows.
Yeah.
He just got around faster that way.
Yeah. Kai is bear crawling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. All right, let's maybe close with some parting words for founders and other people who are in the trenches right now doing their things. What advice would you give them?
So look, there's tons of different businesses to build. You have service-based businesses, you have high TAM, high risk businesses, and I think that like regardless, just be willing to duke it out. You know, it's going to be a journey. Surround yourself with great people. I would not be here if it were not for my team and my family and my friends. And I think that the point is like, if you have a good support network and you are willing to endure the journey of building a business, then go for it, you know, but be willing to make sure that it will likely be an 8 to 10 year journey. There are no shortcuts. There are no free lunches. Just put in the work.
I mean, we were just sitting back, you know, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that, you know, tracking my roots.